everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have January's book haul and wrap up. So in the month of January, I had 6 books to haul, as well as 13 books to talk about for the wrap-up. So we are going to do the haul first, hopefully won't take too long, and then we will jump into the wrap-up and stats as well. If you're only interested in those stats and wrap-up, I will have a timestamp linked down below so you can just like go straight to that. But otherwise, like I said, we have the book haul portion first. I have 6 books here. They are all physical books. I did not pick up any ebooks in the month of January. And actually 4 of them were gifts because my birthday was in January, so thank you so much. We're gonna start with those. So the first one that I have here is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This was gifted to me by Jess, so thank you so much, Jess. This is something that has been around for a while. Like, when was this published? Like early 2010s maybe? 2014 for the paperback edition. Original edition probably came out in 2013. So yeah, early 2010s. It has been over 10 years now, and I have never gotten around to reading it. I know that it's sci-fi, which I absolutely love. It doesn't really look like sci-fi from the cover. I know that it was originally like, what, a trilogy, and then it got expanded, and so many people love this book. And I just never got the chance to read it, and so I was gifted this. I'm so thankful for it. I don't know anything else really about this book except for there might be like 2 different hierarchy, like caste system things, and that's all I really know. The next 3 books that I have here are all romances because I've been very into romance recently, so I'm very grateful for that. The first one I have here is Makeup Breakup by Lily Manon. This is the same author as Sonia Manon, but Lily Manon does her adult romances, and this was gifted to me by Olivia Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophe. She basically sent it my way because she said that we are both fans of sweet romances, which makes me think that this might not be too steamy, which I do like both, but I really do enjoy a sweet romance. So yeah, I'm very excited for this one. This is about like 2 rival app developers. One made Makeup, which I think is like a dating app, and then one made Breakup, which is like a breakup app, and then I think things happen from there. I'm very excited to see how this plays out. I also received the Fiancee Farce by Alexandria Bellafleur from Ren, from the Reading Ren. Thank you so much, Ren. I'm very, very excited for this because I've read Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur, absolutely loved it, and that is part of a series. This is a whole new sort of world, and I'm very excited for this one. It is going to be a sapphic romance, and from my understanding, it's almost like a fake dating. Like, one of the characters, I think, is an author, and ended up creating like a fake girlfriend based on the cover model of her book, and then I guess they meet in real life and need stuff from each other and decide to fake date. Like, I definitely want to read this one. And then I also have the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams. I know I'm behind on the bandwagon for the Bromance Book Club. This has been out for a while, has multiple books in the series, very beloved as well. This was gifted to me by Nikki from Nerdy Nikki, so thank you so much for this. And I definitely want to read this as well. From my understanding, this is about like a club of men who decide to read romance novels to then help their romantic relationships. I don't know anything else about it, but it sounds very intriguing. And then the other 2 books that I need to haul today are actually books from book boxes. I had a separate unboxing video that I will leave linked down below for you in case you want to like really dive into it. But otherwise, I did get January's Illumicrate, which had Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. This is going to be an adult mystery, like a murder mystery, but with fantasy elements. Apparently, all of our characters are trapped on a ship. This is like something they do in this fantasy world with all the like heirs to the throne or whatever it is going to be, and they all have magical powers, magical abilities, except for, I guess, our main character. Like, one character here does not have any, and a different heir ends up murdered, and then they have to sort of figure out what's going on. It is very comparable, apparently, to Agatha Christie's sort of murder mystery stuff, which I'm very intrigued to see how it plays out here with an adult fantasy. And this is the gorgeous edition that we got from Illumicrate. Like, it is very, very pretty. So yeah. And then I also got the January Evernight. We have the Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. This one is YA, which I think is the very first YA that they've put in an Evernight box because of the fact that it is mostly like a horror box. And it's going to deal with these 3 girls that our guests are dealing with like a curse thing. Like, one of them is cursed, one of them is out for revenge, and one of them thinks that like these other people are being murdered because of her. And so they all just come together. It sounds like it's going to be very twisty and like what's going on sort of thing. I do love this cover in general, but I feel like I like the vibes of the original one more, but also like the edges and stuff are really cool, and it's hard to see on camera, or at least in person maybe. I think on camera is actually easier for this. It is like a dark green on the top and the bottom, and then in person it's slightly harder to see this like skeletal figure, but it is so cool. It's also one of those books that like looks like a different book underneath the dust jacket, and we have some pretty cool like sketchy illustration note-like things for the end papers. So that's going to be it for the book haul. We are now going to jump into the stats and everything that I read in January. So let's get started with that. I'll post anything here that we want for like graphs and stuff. I read 13 books in the month of January. That is including 1 DNF, so 12 whole books plus 1 DNF for a total of 4,071 pages. I did listen to 7.2 hours of an audiobook in January. Basically, it was 1 audiobook. And so yeah, let's get into the reading method. I did have 1 audiobook, 4 physical books, and 8 ebooks. For the genre, I had 3 romance, 3 paranormal, 3 fantasy, 2 horror, and 2 sci-fi. For the format, 9 of them were novels, 2 were graphic novels, and 2 were manga. 2 of them were indie published, whereas 11 of them were traditionally published. How I got them, so 4 of them were books that I owned previous to 2024. 4 of them were rereads. I've changed this category up a little bit because there is a section later on that like I only really use for like my end of year stats versus end of month stats. That does have like, is it a reread or is it something that it's brand new to me? But I wanted to actually track my rereads versus the things that are on my TBR, because I previously just had them like, oh, I've owned it. But I want to separate out those rereads, so I'm actually seeing the whole number of things that is coming off of my TBR. So 4 things off of my TBR, 4 rereads, 4 arcs, and 1 book that I borrowed from the library. For the age category, there were 7 adult books, 5 young adult books, and 1 new adult book. And then let's get into the star ratings. My average rating for the month of January is a 3.38, which is quite low, I feel like, for me. I'm usually in the higher 3s, and it's because I did not have any 5-star reads in January. I didn't have any like new favorite books. I did have the 1 DNF like I talked about. I had 1 2-star, 2 3 stars, 2 3.5 stars, and 7 4-star reads. So like, it wasn't necessarily horrible, but I did not have any new favorites, and so that average number is quite low. So those are all of these stats. Now let's get into the actual books that I read for the month. We're going to start with the lowest / DNF that I have and move my way up to my favorite book of the month. I guess it is technically my favorite book of the month, even though it's not a new favorite. So my DNF was actually an arc. I hate DNFing arcs, but I just could not get into this one. And it was That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. I think this is purely a book not for me. I know there's tons of people that really enjoyed this, but it really jarred me when I first started reading this. Like, I got through 33% of this book because I was really trying not to DNF an arc, but within the first few percents of reading this book, I was jarred and was not too sure I actually wanted to read it, but I pushed through a little bit more, and it was mostly because of the language that was in this book. This is a very like fantasy, historical fantasy type of world. Like, they don't have any technology, all this kind of stuff. They're talking about, like, every 15 years, demons come down and they have to pick people to, like, go and do stuff. But the language that they were using was very modern, very, like, almost like the current, like, Gen Z language, very slang / AAVE. I know some of it is one, some of it's the other. And it was just jarring that way to hear that kind of stuff come out of their mouths when everything else was very historical fantasy. And then we get into the actual plot of it. I didn't really believe the stuff that was going on, and I had a hard time understanding how our main character just accepted the world and things for either the way it was or for the way that other people were telling her it was, and then was able to change her mind very, very quickly. And then also I looked up some reviews because of the fact that I was struggling, and this is a romance that has a little bit of, like, not exactly non-consent, but maybe like dubious consent, and it's bordering the line of like BDSM and that kind of stuff, and that's not something that's for me. So at that point, when I saw those reviews, I was like, you know what, this is purely a book that is not my thing. So I did DNF. My 2-star was a book that you guys actually voted on for me to read, which was Cosplay and Confrontation by Sarah Zane. This is a book that I picked up during the last Stuff Your Kindle, and I really did not like this book. This is supposed to be a sapphic romance, sort of like a rivals / enemies to lovers, dealing with cosplay and a convention that is like almost like the ball gowns and books event that Australia usually has, like the Babe event, where it's about authors and people get to dress up and go to a ball and that kind of stuff. Most of this book does not deal with the romance. It took forever for our characters to meet. We did have 2 different main points of view for the 2 different women that were in this book. It has a very big cast of LGBTQ characters, which I did appreciate. However, it was also thrown at us very early, like so many names. Too many names to keep track of. I wished it would have been given to us a little bit slower for that. But my biggest issue for this, without them having so much romance in it, was one of our characters, this is all based around a miscommunication. One of our characters has been in love with the other for a while, but has not been able to come out and say it. The other character has a miscommunication with her and is mad at her because of a perceived, like, cheating scandal. And so when they first meet up, more than halfway through the book, the second character literally goes in on her with some of the worst name calling imaginable, and I don't understand how our first character was still in love with her after how horribly this other person treated her. I could not believe a single thing about this was romantic after that happened, because that was not the only instance. There was another instance with like stuff going on. I just could not believe what I was reading, and like, this is supposed to be a romance. Like, to me, it was not. It was really, really bad. And so because of that, I did finish this one because it was very short, very quick to read, but I did not enjoy my time reading it. I did not like that character that was like literally calling somebody a whore and like a homewrecker and like horrible things. I just could not, no. Moving into my 2 3-stars, the first one I have here is Stolen Ice Bride by Angela J. Ford. I actually do have a vlog for this book, so I will leave it linked down below. And this is a case of, I'm curious to see if this author is just not for me. I think I need to try one more longer length book, which I'm not sure if she has. I'm gonna have to double check if all of her stuff is novellas or not, but this is the second book that I've read by this author that starts out with really good writing. Like, I do enjoy the writing. It seems like it's very good world building, but it only goes up to a certain point. The romance doesn't fully come together for me, and after a point in the story, because they are so short and novella-like, everything just comes rushing to the end without any explanation, and I don't ever feel fulfilled for them. It is a 3-star because I feel like there are probably some people that really do like the just here is a good time. There is romance a little bit. None of these books, I don't think, by this author that I've read before are steamy in any way. but I'm just really wishing for more because they do start off intriguing with seemingly good characters and a curious world that I want more from, and then it just never fully gets there for me. My next 3-star is part of a series and part of a reread. So we're actually going to talk about the whole series right now. So my 3.5 and 4 stars are going to be a little bit off, but like we'll talk about that. I decided to reread Twilight at the very beginning of January, before my TBR video even went live. I posted that slightly into January just because of how the schedule worked on my YouTube channel, and I decided I really want to reread these. You'll notice I don't have Breaking Dawn on this list right now because I started my reread with Twilight. This is something that I have reread before, but it originally came out when I was in high school, the target demographic for this, and I 100% agree with people. There are some problematic tropes, especially dealing with the romance and a high school romance in these books. I feel like book number 1 is not as problematic as some of the other ones. It feels just very paranormal, vampire romance, also sort of destined mates sort of thing. Like, that's the vibe I get for this. I like that it has a slightly slow build up. The writing style is not the best, I agree, but I liked that it had the action near the second half to the end of the book. Like, this is an enjoyable read for me. I then moved into New Moon. The writing style is much better in the second book, according to me, versus the first one. However, this is not a romance. It is very much just a paranormal story. They're introducing the werewolf aspect, and because this is a series, even though I know it is an old series, I'm not going to get into like spoilers and stuff. But again, I do like some of the things that happened in here. I liked the lore that we got, but when you're looking at it as a purely like, this is sort of like a teen romance story, there's not much romance in here. I did like the more action-y parts. It does have some like dubious mental health things. Like, I definitely think we have characters dealing with mental health stuff and depression and suicidal thoughts, and like, just to keep that in mind, like, it is a thing that's in here that is not 100% addressed as well as it should have been. So I gave this one a 3.5. Did I say? I gave Twilight a 4. I gave this a 3.5. And then we move into Eclipse. I gave this a 3. I don't remember fully what I gave these books when I originally first read them, but this tries to push the love triangle so much, and it's so heavy-handed and so unbelievable because we don't actually get even like the actual like, oh yeah, there might have been a love triangle until near the very end of the book. Like, it is just pushed too much. We also have the worst instances of the like toxic relationship tropes in here because both Edward and Jacob are pushing themselves on Bella or trying to protect her so much that they are cutting off all contact with her and her friends. And it is just so heavy-handed. Like, everything in here was a red flag. Like, there's one point, and I guess, again, spoiler maybe, there's one point where Jacob forces her to kiss him and she has to physically punch him to get him away. Like, that is not okay. So out of this series, this was obviously the one that I had the most like negative reaction to. And then I did not read Breaking Dawn because I actually remember when I first read that not liking it. I still have it, but if I was doing a reread and wanting to enjoy stuff and I realized that each book was going down, I didn't want to do that to myself. I didn't need to read Breaking Dawn when I had other things to read, so I ended up watching all the movies instead when I had the flu. So yeah, all of these went downhill a little bit from each book, and I had more and more issues with them the further we got into the series. Okay, moving into the 3.5s, obviously the first one we had was New Moon. The second one was the King in Limbo Omnibus Volume 1 by Ai Tanaka. This is something that I had as an arc from NetGalley. It is a manga, and I am intrigued by this. This is like a sci-fi world where there is a like sort of like disease slash pandemic, so keep that in mind. I think originally when this was written in Japanese, it was before COVID and everything like that. But like where people have this like sleeping disease and they need these people to like go into the dreams and sort of like clean up the stuff that's happening disease-like and then help them come out of it. It is a sort of like interesting concept. but I didn't feel like it had enough actual explanation, so I did give this a 3.5. I do want people to be aware that this does have some like military figures in it in case that is something you need to be aware of. And our main character that we first start following had been in the military and had a bomb go off. I don't remember what those are actually called. And so he is like missing a leg and has some scars. So there is some like more horrific imagery that way, especially because it is a manga. You do get to see some of that, and like at the very beginning he had like just had that happen and he's in the hospital recovering, so keep that in mind. I am very curious about this one. I do think I'm going to continue, but I would need the next volume or omnibus volume to really start to dive into what is actually going on, because this is more of like a sci-fi horror manga. And then we're gonna move into all of my 4 stars. So the first one we already mentioned was Twilight. It was a reread for me. The second one I have here was also a reread for me. It is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, just the first book in this ultimate guide. I am part of the Hitchhikers read along, and so we did read the first book in January, and we already had our live show on Mel's channel. I will leave that link down below as well. We are taking turns with who has the live show on what channel for the books in the series. So a book fiend named Mel had it on her channel first, and we did all that. We had a great discussion. This is a very satire-filled, dry humor, British humor-filled look at like our world, but in a sci-fi setting. And I really did like the first book. I do think it's colored a little bit by the fact that I've watched the movie many times, the 2005 movie, and so I do compare it a little bit when I read the book, but I do like the humor in this. I like that a lot of it does sort of take what's happening to our characters and sort of have it as a little bit of a commentary to our world here. And it's something that was written in 1979, so a lot of it still does hold up in my opinion. And so yeah, that's my next 4-star. My next 4-star was another arc and another manga called My Ultramarine Sky by Nagisa Furuya. This one is a one and done manga. 1 volume, the whole story, and I really did like this one. I thought it was very cute. It is about 2 boys that are in high school, and they had been in the same class since like middle school, and they've just been moving up through all of the grades together, but this year they're not in the same class together, and it seems like it's slowly starting to have them realize that they might be more than just friends. I did think it was very cute. I liked the sort of realization of feelings and things like that. But because it was a 1-volume manga story, I did want more and a little bit more explanation for some stuff. So it was still a very solid 4-star read. The next 2 4-stars I have here are Nailbiter Volume 1 and Volume 2 by Joshua Williamson. The first one is Nailbiter Volume 1, There Will Be Blood. So it was actually my buzzword book for January because we needed a book with there, or there in the title. And this series, I've only read the first 2 volumes, but the series is very intriguing. It's all about this like town. It's like sort of a small town, but for this town being small, it has birthed multiple serial killers. Like, I don't know, 12, 13, something like that when we start the book, and the Nailbiter is one of the ones that came from this town. It does potentially seem like it's going to have some maybe more fantastical elements in it, but at least in the first couple books, it is very much like horror comic. We have lots of blood and gore, there are people dying, it is very serial killer-esque, but there is a mystery also of like, why is this town the town that keeps having serial killers come out of it? And so I'm very intrigued to keep reading this. The next 4-star I have here is Windwitch by Susan Dennard. This is the second book in the Witchland series. This was my 12 books, 12 friends pick for January. I picked it because of Nikki from Nerdy Nikki. She told me that I needed to read this one this year, which makes sense because she made me read Truthwitch last year, and I have really been enjoying this series. I think I gave Truthwitch a 4.5 last year, and I gave this one a 4. I did listen to it on audiobook, and I want to say the audiobook narrator was amazing. Like, I really had a good time with the audio. My biggest thing of why this is a 4 is that we have so many characters, and this second book at least, they are so spread out. Like, the characters that we had as main characters in book 1 were more closely knit. Maybe we had a couple times where they split up a little bit, but this time every single character that we had in book 1 is doing their own individual thing, and it was so much. Like, I don't like that many different points of view and different like plot lines. There was so many. It made the book seem like it was taking forever to get through, but I really love the characters. I really do like the magic system, and we got a lot more about that in this book. Like, I really do want to continue in this series. I just couldn't give it higher than a 4 because there was so much like widespread outness of it. And then I don't know if this is going to be considered a spoiler. I will put it down here, but this is like purely for Nikki, who I know watches my videos. I was so mad that Safi and Merrick didn't get to meet up by the end of book 2. Like, I felt like they were taking forever to get to a meetup and they still haven't done it, so I'm mad at you. That's it. Okay, let's move on to my favorite book of the month. We're there already. Okay, so my favorite book of the month was another arc. It is still a 4-star. It is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. Mariana Zapata is someone that I do love as an author. I have enjoyed many books from her. They're usually like 4 or 5 stars. And they're very slow burn romance. And again, because they're slow burn, the romance does not come in for a while. This book is over 600 pages, and at least half of them are more just pure contemporary story and not romance. But I really love the characters. I really loved how we got to actually see them become friends first. Like, that's one of the things that I love the most. We also do have a teenage boy in here because our 2 main characters, one is a single father, and one is the woman who comes to like rent his garage apartment, even though this teenage son did it behind his back. Like, he wasn't supposed to do that, but he feels appropriate for age level. I have a big pickiness with like children or teens and kids in books that don't feel appropriate for the age they are supposed to be. He felt perfectly age appropriate, and I really loved him as a character too. So like, we get this whole like community because our main character is moving back to this sort of like small town that she used to live in when she was younger after a like big breakup with her boyfriend of like 14 years. So this is very much about like her and her discovering herself along with the romance, and I really did love this one. But it is a 4-star because it's just something that like I did wish picked up the pace a little bit, and I didn't think the conclusion was exactly what I was wanting because it's such a slow burn, such a like going through the life of these characters and becoming friends that like when we get closer to the end of the book, it seems to rush it. Like, we go through a few years, and I was like, oh, we're really speeding up near the end of this book as well. But in general, like, for what I went in for with this book, with this author, I do think it lived up to like what it was supposed to be. I had a great time reading it. It just was not quite a new favorite. And so that is everything for today. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I do have videos coming out on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye!